the Chief Executive Officer of ANAT. My pronouns are she, her. And in addition to being CEO at ANAT, I'm an artist and a researcher. I'm a human, and I'm sitting inside an image of a beautiful artwork by one of our ANAT Synapse artists, Jennifer Kumare Martinello. It's a glass artwork called Medium Ochre's Fish Basket, and it's a golden glass vortex. ANAT's home is on Kaurna country, and we work across many countries, including within digital spaces. Today, I'm zooming in on the land of the Yalukit people of the Boon Wurrung and Kulin nations. I also want to thank Arts South Australia and Creative Australia for making this program and all of ANAT's programs possible. So before we go into the speakers, I want to let everybody know that you're on mute, and we welcome you to turn on your cameras because it's really great for us to see people's faces. And I'm aware it's lunchtime for a lot of you, so you may be having your lunch, so feel free to have your cameras off as well if you're doing other things. This event is going to be recorded and it will be put on ANAT's YouTube channel at a later date. Behind the scenes today, we have the tech support of Jen, Osaf, Carolyn, and Marktistri. So thank you very much, everyone behind the scenes. And I'm really honoured today to host this panel, which is the 20th year of ANAT Synapse residency program. We've got a number of people to speak with today, and I'm going to move over to the panelists and let them introduce themselves. So Jennifer, I'll go over to you. And just to acknowledge, Jennifer's coming from a quiet corner in a cafe today, but there may be some background noises. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm also on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation today. And so I am a Lower Southern Islander elder. I'm also a glass artist. I live and work on the unceded lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people in the ACT. Today I'm in Melbourne for the launch of a book tonight, so which is why I'm in a cafe, having flown down this morning.
Thanks, Jennifer, so much. Simon, over to you.
Thanks so much, and hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I have the great fortune of being able to work alongside Jennifer on this particular project, and it's been such a wonderful privilege. So my name is Simon Haberley. I'm at the Australian National University, so I've got pronouns he, him, and I'm working and living on the unceded lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples, and in the same area that Jennifer is residing as well. So we have great opportunity to collaborate and get together and work on the projects we have. So it's been a very exciting time. So looking forward to this discussion.
And Simon, before we move on, tell us a little bit, we've posted your bio in the chat, but tell us a little bit about your area of research.
Yeah, I'm a paleoecologist, and that means I look at environments in the past, ecologies of the past, and I use certain techniques such as taking cores from different wetlands and soft sediments that preserve the record of the past, and that record is preserved in things like the pollen and the charcoal and various other microfossils. So a lot of my work is delving into past environments and using these micro remains that preserve for many thousands of years to reveal what the environment looked like in the past.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Keith Armstrong, I'll throw over to you now.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Keith Armstrong. I'm one of the Synapse residents for this year for the Forest Art Intelligence Project. Talking to you today from the unceded lands of the Yagara and Turrbal people here in Meanjin, Brisbane. Pronouns are he, him, and if for those that need that, I'm a tall man, short brown hair, wearing a black shirt and jacket. And thank you for having me today, Anna.
Thank you, Keith. And Keith, this is your second round as an ANAT Synapse artist.
Look, it's an incredible privilege to have had the chance to do this twice. Previously, I did it in 2012. So it certainly is, as I was saying to you earlier, it feels like a second career best. It's one of the most wonderful residencies that anyone could ever do. So I highly recommend anyone who's prospective looking to do it, please try your hardest to get accepted. It's a great thing.
Thank you. We will pass over to Eleanor now to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming along today. My name's Eleanor, and I'm coming to you from the same lands as Keith, so Meanjin, from the unceded lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. My brief visual description for those who can't see me. I'm short, but you can't see me because I'm not standing up. I've got black hair and I'm wearing giant budgie earrings in flashing green. And my background has been quite varied, but in terms of research, I've worked on island biogeography. So I love thinking about things in terms of time and space and, I guess, physical location or place. So yeah, that's where I'm coming to from you today.
Yes, thank you, everyone. So I'm going to launch into the questions, and it's a question from one of our attendees today who sent a question through before the micro talk. And it's a question we get asked a lot, and everyone's always interested in this. And I'm definitely interested in this as somebody who is a relationship builder and sees the value always in collaboration. So Jennifer and Simon, feel free to make this a three-way talk to this question. Jennifer, how did you find or connect with Simon to work together on your project? So how did you get to meet each other, and how was that approach made? So tell us your story.
Well, it was Simon who contacted me. As a glass artist with a deep interest in paleoecology over a long time, one of my questions has been, what if you, instead of bringing up the quaternary fossils in a core, if you could bring up the sounds of the first voices, the first ceremonies and songs and lullabies? And I had made a series of voice cores, as I called them, to represent the sounds of the first voices from various places. And I advertised them online through an Indigenous art fair, and Simon bought one. And then he got in contact and said he'd like to meet and have a talk. So it just went from there. And then the ANU brought the rest into the series, which is now on show in the Coombs building at the Australian National University.
Congratulations. There are so many beautiful layers in both of your works, and bringing the layers together, and that's a big part of your Synapse residence, Jennifer, to go back in your personal history and with your own ancestors, and then that broader the connection to country, and then Simon supporting that through his research and his science as well.
Yes, it's been an amazing privilege to work with Simon and have access to this incredible database of excuse me, I've got a tickle, of amazing images from the Quaternary record, because my project initially was to investigate the paleoecological substrata under my ancestors' footsteps, which it still is, but it's now broader.
Love that. It always shifts and changes. That's part of the joy, I think, of Synapse, to have that time together and to really enter into that immersive, experimental, creative space. Simon, over to you. So that was you.
Yeah.
You were the approacher for Jennifer.
Yeah, that was how it went. And apologies for the leaf blower in the background. I've started to work on the gardens at ANU. Wonderful. But anyway, yeah, it was a great, well, fortuitous in many ways, coming across the work of Jennifer that I saw online initially, but then it sort of resonated so strongly with the work that I've done, I guess, as a scientist, but it also brought up these other ideas and sort of things that I hadn't really thought about in many ways, about how people can look at the scientific data and the information that we gather, and then put a lot more depth and meaning into that work. So I think that's what really sort of sparked interest and made me feel that I just had to connect with Jennifer and have the conversations, and she was so generous in accepting that invitation and coming to ANU, and we've given some joint talks here, and we've had our lab meetings together and so on. It's been really, really wonderful to have that another really important voice and giving us a different perspective of the work that we do, the sort of the basic science work, but also what impact and implications that have for many other people, particularly Indigenous people in Australia.
Yeah, and we find often that just making that first contact is enough to get the conversation started. And we recommend that everybody do that as a first instance. You'd be surprised at how generous a lot of people are, and particularly if there are such beautiful connections in your research and creative practice, to be able to start to create a shared language together as well.
That's right.
Keith, so your project has multiple partners and multiple collaborators. So tell us a bit about how you met those people and connected with them.
Yeah, well, yeah, so I'm very lucky enough to have a team of scientists working with me on this, but I think we all came together through a place. It's a place that I've been going to regularly for many years now. It's called SERF, or Samford Ecological Research Facility, and it's actually a property that's owned by the University QUT. And as you can imagine, it's a block of remnant vegetation in a place called Samford, which is a peri-urban site, half an hour drive, I suppose, from Meanjin. And I've just been going there and spending just a lot of time just walking and listening and looking and being. And of course, there's a lot of different scientific projects that are happening on site. So slowly I've just got to know everybody really well, and over time found the scientific and also land management collaborators that I needed for this project. I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute, but the project essentially involves revegetating a block of land and then building an art process and project within that. So yeah, my collaborators, Eleanor, who will speak in a minute, she is from Terrestrial Ecology Research Network, and she'll speak to that. A couple of forest restoration ecologists, Dr. David Tucker and Dr. Gabrielle Lebink, who couldn't be with us today, and also the land manager who lives and who works on the site, Marcus Yates. So we're all brought together by this place and our passion for that country and protecting and conserving and regenerating as best we can from our own different disciplines.
Yeah. Eleanor, so when you encountered Keith as an artist and he's on site and you have shared passion, so what's your memory of your origin story of the relationship?
Good question. So I remember the first time I met Keith, I had just started working for Turn Australia, and I gave a talk at their community night there about, because we do a lot of data collection out at Samford, and it's in a great location because it's so close to the city, so it's really easy to bring international visitors who are also studying long-term ecological change. So we're a long-term ecological change monitoring network, and it goes nationally and internationally. And I gave my talk, and then I think after my talk, Keith then gave a talk about an artwork that he devised and collected data at Samford for. I think it's called Common Thread. Keith can correct me. And yep, it's right. And I was like, this is amazing. It was this amazing artwork, which kind of takes you on a journey through a LiDAR point cloud. And it depicts the site, and you travel up through the soil and into the forest and through. And I was like, oh, this is so incredible. And Turn Australia actually collects a lot of LiDAR data and different data sets that could also be, I guess, taken beyond their scientific usefulness into an artistic form, because one of my passions is, I guess, reimagining data and stories to try and reach a broader audience. And I emailed him after I saw that presentation. We talked on the night, but then I emailed him and said, look, I work for Turn, and if you can think of a way that we could work together, or if you'd like to catch up, let me know. And he was very enthusiastic, and that's how it all started. Yeah, for us.
Yeah, great. So that's very interesting. Again, seeing those areas of crossover and interest in the creative practice and also the scientific research, and making that first approach and starting to build those relationships before the project starts. I think it's really, really important way of looking at things and building up those relationships of trust. Keith, I'd like you to expand on what's been happening in the Synapse project and the nature of the collaboration.
Okay, yes. Well, I guess in summary, there's an awful lot of talk about intelligence, particularly with artificial intelligence, of course, at this particular moment in time. So it struck me that most of those intelligences were defined by whether they were like us, aka whether they were like humans. And it felt to me that it was time to really put some more energy into examining the innate, more than human, regenerative and creative intelligences that allow systems to regenerate. And it was really at that time, there was a patch of pasture which was adjacent to the forest at Surf, which the botanists had defined on site to have a very good remnant native vegetation as opposed to the introduced pasture grasses that were elsewhere around the forest. So we sort of began to hatch this idea that we might be able to regrow a whole section out from the forest, but not to actually plant it, but actually to let the innate creative networked intelligences of the forest do that job for us, and we would just be sort of stewards or curators. And that in itself, of course, is a beautiful thing and is a creative project. But within that, we sort of began to devise this idea of something we called forest art intelligences. And these were, rather than some form of sort of more traditional environmental or land art or something extractive, I suppose, it was more about trying to make an artwork for the forest, try to make something that would have a direct benefit for the forest and would integrate within the ecology of the forest. And then as that process happened, we would then draw some of those changes out for human audiences. So that's really how it came about, I think.
And the forest, yeah.
No, go ahead, Mel, go ahead.
I was just thinking how important the forest and country and the land and that everything on site there is a vital collaborator as well with the work.
Absolutely, you're spot on there. It's incredibly powerful place, and I have spent innumerable hours just being there, walking, listening, trying to understand what's happening. And it was really lovely to have your team and also Angie Abdillah from New Ways Old to visit us during ICEA, because I had an artwork that came out of this project during ICEA, but you came to the site. And just seeing the response that you had to the side, and Angie and all her amazing advice that she gave us from her, rich First Nations perspective, made us realise, there's something very special about every place, but this place is something that really activates us, and as you say, a deep collaboration with the non-human world that really governs the future of that place.
Yeah. Eleanor, I'd like to hear a bit about your experience and working on this as a collaborator. And I know there are other people that collaborated on the project that aren't here today. So there are multiple levels and areas of expertise across this project. But I'm wondering how the residency period and working with Keith more closely and the other collaborators, how that has shifted your thinking, or has it shifted your thinking, and what ways do you think it will impact your future work and research?
Sure. I guess in terms of like shifting my thinking, I think I was kind of searching a little bit within the scientific discipline for more, as in science, I feel, can start off and is still a creative process in many ways. But as you go through that process or the journey of completing a scientific process, I guess it's like more end focused. So you're really marching towards this end point. You really want to collect a certain amount of data. And I guess everything becomes a little bit reductive in terms of really, you start off with this beautiful love of something, maybe of the natural world. For myself, it's the natural world, and looking at how ecological communities form, where they do and why they do that. But then that gets lost a little bit on that journey, I guess. Whereas with the artistic and creative process, there's this opportunity to really enjoy that journey a little bit more. I think it keeps those elements of awe and wonder within the process more easily for me. I'm not saying all science is like this, because other people will say I'm wrong, but for me, I think it keeps it there, and I love holding all of those elements at the same time in the same space within my head, because I think then you have this opportunity to then make a translation of knowledge into different forms to reach different audiences, because I think a lot of the time as ecologists, we talk about how our message isn't coming across. People don't necessarily believe that there's a biodiversity crisis, or they might not believe in climate change. So it's about winning the hearts and minds of the broadness of our society, and science in its purest form might not be the best way of doing that. Does that help? Does that answer the question? I think it does, but maybe you want more.
It's perfect. Yeah, and the future is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary and collaborative, and it is again part of the gold of the work that ANAT does is when we see what happens when you bring those different mindsets and different ways of thinking and different ways of looking together, and that's where there can be new approaches and experimental ways of being and working. So that was really beautiful. Thank you. Jennifer and Simon, over to you. We were talking a bit about your work and your residency. So I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that experience and how you worked together.
Well, I've had A really wonderful welcome from Simon and colleagues at the ANU. I've got a fabulous room to work in and access to all the laboratories and an incredible database of images, the macro photography from the quaternary fossils that have been brought up. And I had to do a lot of technical research to get used to terminology and things like that. And I very soon realized that I guess what connects probably quite well with what Keith is talking about, with the kind of personhood and intelligence of plants, is that from a traditional Aboriginal point of view, you know, the earth is our mother. We and the rocks and the trees and the plants and rivers, we are all equal, interconnected, mutually interdependent. But in particular is the concept that we are our mother's skin. So, and that leads me into the concepts or the thinking about, you know, as far as humans are concerned, our skin is the largest human organ that we have. So if we all as skin, our mother's skin, function together as our mother's largest functional organ in that sense for survival, and how does that work, has been something that has motivated me really interestingly. So it's my, I suppose what I'm doing now in the research is it has turned into an ever expanding spiral. And each circuit around the spiral is involving another level. So it's starting with the plant forms and how Eremophila in particular is a medicine plant that my grandmother used, and it's something that I use and pass on to my children and grandchildren. How has that evolved during deep time? With all the properties that it has to sustain life, there's an incredible gifting of life from, you know, these plants to humans, and we need to find ways of reciprocating, of showing that gratitude for that. So that's the beginning of the spiral. The next level of the spiral is coming back to what I was really excited about finding was Leah Barclay's research, who's a former Synapse alumni and into cymatics. And it is about how the science of visualizing the sound or the acoustic energy of plants, which of course took me back to my sounds of the first voices, if we could bring those up in a core. I know, for example, the Eremophila are growing in the herbarium up on Black Mountain, which is very close to where I am and where Simon is. But how will I go about looking at recording the sounds of the Eremophila, which I know can be done, and I've been looking at the plant science of Monica Galliano as well in this. How can we extrapolate back through deep time how those sounds might have been? Because one of the important things about First Nation languages is our languages come from the land. They come from the sounds of our environment and the textures of the land. So Aboriginal, in fact, Victorian musician Lou Bennett has done a lot of research in this. And a lot of her music is based on First Nations languages and how those languages have been given birth to by the sounds of the land and place. And so they're also deeply interconnected. So what I am finding now is looking at what I guess that plant science that's to do with sound, how can I extrapolate this? And so, of course, then the spiral gets a bit wider and a bit bigger. And it's the question is how am I, once I access these and extrapolate back through deep time and back again to my grandmothers and my ancestors, and the support of those things of plants and language for me and my life and my children and grandchildren, how do I then give this a visual form, a voice, which will be in glass, but possibly other art forms as well. And that's what's really exciting. So I feel that what this residency has done is allowed me to knock down silo walls and move across sciences and barriers and questions, and given me a very broad scope. So it's been great.
Amazing, thank you. I think Leah Buckley's in the room today as well.
Oh, great.
So yes, that there's beautiful similarities weaving through everything that we're talking about today. Keith, I'm going to head over to you and find out where to from here for you.
Well, so the site, I guess the 2 hectare site we're working on will, I'm just going to very briefly just show you the pictures of the site, just so you can see down the bottom left-hand corner there where we're working. And that's the site there, and just some images of, as you can see, it's an old pasture and here are my collaborators who haven't been here, weren't able to be here today. As you can see, the forest is returning. So it's really it's a long-term project. I mean, in maybe 50 to 100 years, it will be indistinguishable from the adjacent forest. I mean, the collaboration in my mind is just beginning. I mean, it's really been a whole year of listening and learning and absorbing. So, but we're definitely, before the year's out, we will engage with the first supple interactions on the site and actually start to introduce these intelligences. But it seemed really important to spend that time listening. And the other thing I should just really want to clarify is that we're also building a collaboration with the traditional owners of the site. It's a very it's a site that sits between a different range of traditional countries, and it's under contest. So, and that process is being managed by the owners of the site. But it's really important to me that we break through that and actually have more conversations on country with traditional owners to work out if our direction is indeed appropriate for the next decades, hundreds of years. So that's where we're heading, I think.
Yeah, and I think both projects have talked a lot, not a lot, we've talked about deep time. So the work that you all are doing sits into a different time frame than current human time frame. I think that's really important to acknowledge as well, the scale of what the projects that you're working on historically and ancestrally, but also for future ancestors as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's very true.
This has been a short but sweet talk with some really beautifully deep work and touching on some of that work. And I really appreciate, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners today have really appreciated being able to hear a little bit more about the projects that you've been working on. And I see that Leah's connected with you, Jennifer, in the chat. So that's another really nice connection that's happening there. So I'm going to bring it to a close. And as I do, there are a couple of things I'd like to remind people of. ANAT Synapse 2025 is currently open for applications. So I think, Carolyn, you're going to put some information in the chat about the link to the ANAT Synapse FAQs or the application process. So after listening to today, if you're interested in applying for Synapse 2025, I think feel free to contact myself or Jen at ANAT, and we can talk you through the process. And it is a really valuable process, as our artists and scientists today have said. It's also something to keep on your agenda for next year, is that we're going to be working with Leah Barclay and the University of the Sunshine Coast with ANAT Spectra in 2025 next year. And the theme is reciprocity. So we're about to do a call out for EOIs for that theme, which I think there's a lot of relevance in today's talk about the theme of reciprocity as well, and how we work as organizations and artists and researchers and scientists and technologists within reciprocity. So that's going to be happening in early October on the Sunshine Coast on Gubbi Gubbi country. So we're going to come to an end now, and I'm just waiting for the final screen to come up, which will have where you can contact ANAT and connect with ANAT if you are yet to do so. So we have a number of social media platforms, and you can also subscribe to the ANAT Digest, which is our monthly newsletter, and it's jam-packed always with great opportunities within our networks and beyond. So connect with us there. And I'm going to sign off for today. And thank you everybody for coming along. It's been great to see your names and your faces popping up. Thank you again to our speakers. I value your work immensely, and I'm really excited about where it takes us all into deep time and to the next steps for us and our more than human collaborators. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.